Welcome, legends, to another Uncommon Man podcast. Today, we are going to look at the things holding you back from achieving the results that you want. And I suggest getting a pen and paper because we are going to give you practical steps that you can put in straight away in order to remove the roadblocks that are often stopping people from having the success in their business that they want, having the financial success in their personal life, and having the success in their health and their relationships. We're going to look at all areas of our lives, how we navigate them, and what we need to do in order to get to the next step. So what I want to chat to you guys about today, I want to ask you, Harry, we solve a vast array of problems in our clients' lives, whether that be in their relationships, whether that be in their health, whether we help them with their business. And a lot of the time it comes back to this one thing that we all know is the major problem. How do you see this show up for the clients that you have, and what have you been doing with them to help them with the process?
So one of the biggest things I see show up for a lot of guys is like cognitively, a lot of people know what they should do. Like when it comes to getting better, they know that what they shouldn't do, they know what they roughly should do, but there's always that block for a lot of people, right? I know personally in my past, there's been blocks like, you know that you should be doing this thing, you know that you should reach out to more people, you know that you should make more content. Like if you're trying to create a business, create a presence on social media, to grow a business, to grow your reach, all that kind of stuff. But there's that block, like you know what to do, so why not do it? And that mindset, I think, for a lot of guys is like it differs for everybody. Some people, it's the fear of kind of being judged. For some people, it's their fear of kind of failure, or I guess just an insecurity in their own ability for some reason. And for a lot of people, I think if you can take that pressure off in the expectation that you should be good at what you're about to do if you haven't done it before. There's like this expectation of, oh, I know what I need to do, so I'm going to be able to start it and then just be able to do it with 100% consistency and execution and nail it. Okay, cool. I'm going to start going to the gym 5 times a week, and I'm going to be able to be consistent on that just indefinitely. Nothing will get in my way. What could stop me? And, you know, I've heard you ask this question before. It's like, well, what would stop you? Like, what does failure look like? What would get in your way? And a lot of people in their motivated state would be like, nothing. I'm so motivated, nothing could stop me. It's like, well, okay, if you can't entertain the idea of failure, then like you're not looking at the entire like situation here, because I can guarantee you there's going to be things that are going to stop you from going to the gym in this example, right? And so when I'm getting guys to look at why they're not doing these things that they know that they really should, it's like unblocking a lot of those things. Like, okay, cool, let's be realistic. Like you have to have a habit before you can improve it. Okay, in this instance of going to the gym, let's start with just doing something. You know, the first step of going to the gym, put your fucking shoes on, set your alarm, do something so you start to create that cadence, and then you can kind of expand on it from that perspective, right? So I think anything is better than nothing. And then so looking at it from that kind of frame allows people that wiggle room of, okay, I'm not going into this expecting to be perfect the first time around, because then I've heard Alex Hormozy talk about this the other day when it comes to like knowing when to push versus pivot in certain goals. Because, you know, you'll get some people on one side which will go, oh, I was going to go for a run, but it rained, so it's a sign that I'm not meant to run, and like externalize that and like go down that kind of route. And so what he talks about in this push versus pivot is, you said you wanted to do this thing. You said you were going to go for the run, go for the workout, do this outbound, do all this fucking hard work. And okay, cool. Now it's time to do it. And this thing has gotten in your way. Do you change course or do you fucking push through it? Unless you have new information to say that what you originally set out is no longer a good idea or is not feasible, You're just finding a reason not to fucking do it. So if you're waiting for the time that everything, all the stars align to go and do it, you've probably missed the boat, because there's going to be plenty of times when you don't feel like doing it. And so if you start it with the pretense that I'm only going to do it when I feel like it or when it's convenient, that then insinuates that as soon as it's not convenient, as soon as I don't feel like doing it, as soon as there's an obstacle, that I'm going to stop doing it again. And then we end up back in the same kind of place of doing it when we feel like it, instead of just being disciplined and just fucking doing it.
I guess like one of the things you're kind of looking at there as well is starting the process. Then you can actually start looking at roadblocks as well. Like you said, putting your shoes on, setting your alarm, putting your shoes on, da-da-da. If you get to the setting the alarm and you don't get up, okay, cool. The roadblock is you don't get up. Let's work on that problem. Okay, you set your alarm, you've got up, you've put your shoes on, but you don't go to the gym. Okay, cool. There's another roadblock. What is the next thing that we can solve? But if you never start, then it's very, very hard to figure out the roadblocks. And then if you can't, that's if you can't compute or imagine what the roadblocks are going to be like from the start, because you're in that motivation state where you think nothing's going to stop you.
Because it's like the all or nothing kind of approach, right? It's either I get up as soon as my alarm goes off, I get dressed, I have my shake, I go straight to the gym, I have this epic workout, have this amazing day, or I sleep in, binge eat, do fuck all steps, and just kind of trash the day. Not a very constructive approach, right? And so, like for me, like for that exact same approach, I like guys to be able to put it in the calendar. Put it in the calendar, as you said, identify those roadblocks. So then when you have that self-reflection and that accountability piece, all right, let's identify exactly which link in the chain is broken. Because if you've planned it, you've blocked out logistically where you'll have time to make it work, and it's just not getting done, then okay, it's a discipline issue, because logistically it makes sense, it's fine. If you're actually doing the task but you're not getting the result, then it's an execution issue. Right. And so you can be a lot more accurate as to what you need to tweak, rather than just throwing the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh, it doesn't fucking work. Well, which part doesn't work? There's like 1,000 different steps in actually making that happen. So which part doesn't work? Right.
So we were chatting before, and Nick quietly said how much of a Taylor Swift fan he is. And we were talking about the song. I don't actually know the name of it, but I do know the lyrics to a part of it. So I'm obviously a secretive fan myself. But considering I don't have a radio in my car, so I can't say it's accidentally played in my car. But it's high. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. And I'm like, how brilliant is that in a level of awareness when we break anything down and we look, okay, cool. Well, actually, when we break anything down to the nuts and bolts, the biggest problem is ourselves. And Nick, could you share some insights in how you see people roadblocking themselves, how they do it, and what do you think's going on, or what's your understanding around whether it's the unconscious or whatever it is for them that's standing in their own way for their success?
When you're looking at it, many a time you want to diagnose, all these reasons. This is why, this is the problem, this is why I am the way that I am. And maybe that story's been fed for many, many years. And now you've got enough validation to do fuck all. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that. And the answer is pretty simple. It's just, there are things that that you should do and shouldn't do. No one even needs to tell you that. Innately, when you're sitting there making the decision of convenience and ease. And everywhere you look in nature, everywhere outside of yourself even, there's effort that has to be exerted to create change, to create something beautiful. If a tree just took a week to grow, I can guarantee you now the root system wouldn't be able to sustain it if there was a storm. If things just happen instantaneously, you wouldn't, there wouldn't be no longevity when all these changes are to take place. Like it's just not going to make sense. And I think many people want that quick fix, just with how society has gone, and no one's willing to really like say, well, like you said, you've got a process that you run people through where they look at themselves now and they look at who they want to be. And I'm sure you're going to dive into that a little bit later, but people are so comfortable with the story that they have right now about themselves that when they have to question that is probably the most painful thing, because they actually have to look at themselves. And it's not necessarily that they're bad people. It's just by default, they're going to judge who they are. And they don't want to judge themselves, because that means that they're going to have to hold themselves accountable. And maybe it feels really weird. So then you've got the vulnerability aspect, like, oh shit, I'm maybe not the person that I want to be. And there's a lot of things reflecting that. And I'd much rather take my head and shove it in the sand. I think that we overcomplicate this idea of change and we make it really difficult. I think that we try to take on too much. And that's what I've observed even within my own life and within clients that I've worked with over the years. You want to change these massive things, but it really does start with that single step. What is the small thing that is accessible to you, where there is resistance, but you have enough will and it is plausible if you were to just assert yourself a little bit more, and you do that often enough, there's already a change because you've made a different decision. That's a massive win. Look at the change. Don't look at the mountain that you're still busy climbing. Just focus on that next step and focus on that next step. And if there is a crevasse, if there is that roadblock, hey, we work around it. If you fell into it, it's okay. It's not that the roadblock was there on purpose. It was just there. And that was something you had to figure out along your journey.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The roadblocks, like we were talking about with Harry, that they show up once you start taking action. It's very, very hard to map out the way without starting. It's very, very hard to look at everything that might possibly pop up in your way without starting. You can see some things, but what I see guys with who, when we talk about it, hi, it's me, the problem is me, I'm like, you don't find that out until you start challenging current situations, ideologies, or I call them maps of yourself. So, for example, sat down and had a coffee the other day with an old client, and he's in the building trade, like awesome guy, massive heart, really, really lovely dude. And we were looking at how he was showing up. He was grinding really hard, working really hard. Like everything about him just looked like it was hard. And he was known as the guy who's like works really, really hard, grinds hard. And I was like, cool. Is that how you want to be known? And he goes, yeah, that's the whole past. I wanted to be known as the guy who works really, really hard, who's always grinding, who like all these things. And so we had a look. I was like, cool, where did those beliefs come from? So we looked, and it was quite clearly from his father. His father was a grinder. That's how he was seen as worthy to his dad. Is like, oh, my son's a grinder, super proud of him. He works really, really hard. So all these things started like coming to the surface, and we realized that in order to get to the next level in his business, he had to step out of his own way and allow or let go of an identity that he had currently made for himself. And so this is where the process comes in for the guy. So if you have your pen and paper now, this is super important, because you have to start looking at the current identity you have made for yourself. And it comes out when you say things. It's not always easy to do yourself, but if you're having challenges with understanding what these might be for you, start checking your language when you say, yeah, I love working really, really hard. Because I don't. I like working really joyfully. I like things to be as easy as possible. And I love making as much impact as I can with as little effort as I can. That's my current identity. At some stage, it will probably no longer serve me, but I need to be aware of it. So it's about writing down your current self-identity. What are the beliefs you have? How are you perceived outside? How do you want to be perceived? How do you perceive yourself? You write all these down. the next step is you go, cool, how do I want to be perceived? How do I want to perceive myself? How do I want to present myself to the world? So I asked this guy, I said, would you rather be known as the guy who works really, really hard and grinds all the time? Or do you want to be known as the guy who does an exceptional job, everything is polished, and it's just finished really, really well? And he's like, man, I'd much rather be the guy that is known as the guy who finishes the job superbly well, and it just looks so well finished. I said, what do you think if you asked all the guys that work for you, what do you think they would say if you asked them the same question? And he said, all of them will say the same thing. They want to be the guys that are known as finishing something really, really well. It's polished and it looks really nice. I'm like, cool. So looking at your two identities now that you've written down, which one do you need to let go of in order to step up to the next level of yourself and the next level of your business? And he's like, oh, okay, it's that one. Is it instantaneous? No. We still get caught in a competition with somebody else. Like, I worked harder than you this week. I did 80 hours. You only did 60. Yeah, I'm a grinder. And then you go, oh, crap, I'm competing on an identity that I no longer want to identify with. So it's, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. When am I going to let go of this aspect of me so I can step into this new identity and the new story? I don't want to say we need a story, because if you're meditating in a mountain and you become one with everything else and that's your ability, then there is no story. You don't need a story to navigate the world. However, if you're like us, you're navigating the world, it's very, very helpful to have maps and stories because they allow you to navigate. Is you can either choose to have the story written for you, which is normally by your parents and everything that you've just had, or you can look at that, write it down, check out and find all the beliefs that you currently got. You will find a few of them. I suggest finding a mentor, a coach, or somebody who can help challenge all these things and list them all out for you so you can knock as many as you can off the list and write the new list. And you can go as far as like, how do they cut their hair? What do they wear to work? How do they speak? How do they stand? Like, you can write all these new things about your identity. And every day you can do an assessment on yourself. How did I show up like this, for this, for this, for this? And you'll find life dramatically changes very, very fast. Did you know, guys, that the amount of assessments I've been doing on guys lately, 86% of guys don't have any time for introspection or reflection. 86%. And I'm like, it's a very few amount of people, a couple of hundred that I've assessed. And I'm like, if you expand that, I think it's way, way higher. I think it's closer to 98, 96, somewhere around there, like guys not dedicating any time to introspection. I'm like, guys will spend more time thinking about the kind of coffee that they're having or where they're putting their money compared to actually what they're thinking, which is going to give you the biggest leverage of your time. So guys, yes, there's the tool of the two pieces of paper, the story you have now and the story you have after. But if you don't dedicate a bit of introspection or reflection time, you just have two pieces of paper that aren't going to do a whole lot for you. So take that, put it into action, and see how your life dramatically starts to change. You have to be willing to admit some things to yourself. One, that it's most likely that you're the problem. You're probably the problem in your health. You're probably the problem in your relationship. You're probably the problem in your business. It's a very, very challenging thing to face up to. It's scary, and it takes responsibility. And a lot of us don't want to take that, especially the common man. The common man doesn't want to live in that. That's why this is for the uncommon man. So I hope that's been really helpful. And just from your guys' perspective, is there anything else you guys would add to that?
I'm sure a lot of the guys have heard of, like, say, Jocko Willink, extreme ownership, those kind of guys which talk about taking ownership for everything in your life. And for a lot of people, yes, it can be scary or intimidating, or there's that hesitation. Yeah, but they did this to me and it's their fault and whatever else. Like, okay, cool story. In taking that extreme ownership, if you can reframe that from being scary and intimidating and almost like a negative, to empower. Because, like, play it out. Okay, say it is somebody else's fault, whether it's your partner or your parents or the government or whoever else, it's this other entity. That means that you have zero control over the outcome, over change. Because, like, and then so why stress? If you can't accept responsibility, then they can dictate what happens to you. So don't stress, because it's out of your control, right? So stress less. Or on the flip side, it's all your fault, which means it's all your responsibility to do something about it. So if you don't like it, fucking change it, which gives you power, right? And so I don't know about you, but I want to have power about, we can go into whether free will is like actually free will, or if it's actually determined, but that's a long conversation. But for the hypothetical of this one, let's just say that you do have the power to choose what you like. Enjoy the power, my friend.
Nice.
I think it's that notion of you can either be this leaf being blown around in the wind and blame the wind for where you go. And if you land on a house or a roof, or you land in a puddle, or you just carry on blowing, you're just a leaf and it's the wind's fault. Or you can choose to accept that you can also be the wind, because that's also what is available for you, and you can move through whatever. And you have the capacity for change. If you can perceive something, it means it's available to you. Just like that saying of, like, if you dream it, you can achieve it. If you can see it, if you can see that there's an inkling, if there's a desire, you need to step into that. You need to look at why that's actually showing up and being reflected in your space. It's not there to just ignore and, grab a bottle or go and dissociate. It's there because you're being guided to actually take an action, because life isn't trying to take life away from you. It's trying to expand through you. And if you're not willing to open yourself to expand into your life and into life, then really the question I want to leave you with is, what are you doing? What is the point?
I'm busy being the problem. Oh, that's good. Thank you so much, guys. And to those listening, if you're not already over in the group, I'll make sure there's a link here for it. You can come over. It's completely free. You can interact with myself or any other coaches over there. Also, Nick runs Manifestation Mondays, which is completely free and accessible to everybody inside that group. It's a phenomenal way to start transforming your life. And there's just a stack of resources in there, from controlling your nervous system to losing weight to some of these unconscious belief systems that we can change, to how you can access your summit faster. All of these things are inside our free Facebook group, and I'll drop the link in the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We love having you here. And please, if you've found this helpful, please share far and wide. All we want to do is see men live uncommon lives. We believe that if we have stronger men, we will have stronger communities, and that will fix a lot of the challenges I guarantee you are seeing in the world, and certainly what we are noticing as well. Big love to you all. Thank you very much.